A quiet school parking lot. A single dad smashes the glass, pulling a limp little girl into his arms. The crowd gasps as he kneels on the asphalt, shading her from the blazing sun. And then, instead of taking credit, he wraps her in a quilt and calls the crowd to pray. Tears fall, phones record. The moment goes viral, but what looks like a miracle rescue is only the beginning, because behind that CEO's perfect image lurks scandal. Whispers of secret children, lies spread online, turning a hero into a target. And when the system strikes back, threatening his daughter, the nanny, and everything he loves, this single dad faces an impossible choice: stay silent to survive, or speak the truth out loud and risk it all. What happens when one act of compassion collides with power, lies, and prejudice? And in the end, will truth be strong enough to save them all? Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. The tire iron connected with glass in one sharp crack. Safety glass scattered like diamonds across asphalt as Marcus reached through, fumbling for the door lock with practiced calm that came from years of fixing things under pressure. "Sir, are you inside the vehicle?" The dispatcher's voice crackled through his phone speaker propped against the curb. "Getting her now." Marcus lifted Ava from the booster seat, her small body limp and too warm against his chest. The stuffed lamb tumbled onto the pavement. He scooped it up with one hand, knowing how kids clung to familiar things when scared. He carried her 3 steps from the SUV into what little shade the building offered, then sank to his knees, cradling her across his lap. September heat rose in waves from the blacktop. Marcus shifted his broad shoulders to block the sun completely, creating a pocket of shadow over the child's face. "How's she doing?" the dispatcher asked. Breathing shallow but steady, pulses fast. His fingers pressed gentle against her wrist. "She's burning up, though." Ava's eyelids fluttered. A small whimper escaped her lips. "Hey there, little one." Marcus kept his voice low and soothing, the same tone he used when Joy had nightmares. "You're okay. You're safe now." The hymn came without thinking. Amazing Grace, the one Sarah used to hum while cooking Sunday dinner, while tucking Joy into bed, while fighting the cancer that eventually won. His voice stayed soft, barely above a whisper, but the familiar melody steadied his hands as he checked Ava's forehead again. Footsteps pounded across the parking lot. Mrs. Chen from the front office arrived first, her keys jangling. "Oh my God, is that Marcus? What happened?" Found her locked in the car. Called 911 already. He didn't look up from Ava's face, watching for signs of improvement. "Can you get some water? And maybe a cool cloth?" Mrs. Chen sprinted back toward the building. More people gathered, teachers finishing their planning period, parents arriving early for pickup. Marcus heard their gasps and whispers, but kept his focus on the child. Ava's eyes opened properly this time, unfocused and confused. She tried to sit up. "Easy now." Marcus adjusted his hold, keeping her secure but not confined. "Don't move too fast. You got a bit too hot in that car." Her gaze found his face, studied it with that direct way young children had. "Where's Marisol?" "We'll find her, don't worry. What's your lamb's name?" "Wooly." Her voice came out scratchy. She clutched the stuffed animal tighter. "My throat hurts." "I know, sweetheart. Help's coming." Mrs. Chen returned with a water bottle and damp paper towels. Marcus pressed the cool cloth to Ava's forehead, then her neck. She sighed at the relief. "Can you take tiny sips for me?" He held the water bottle to her lips. "Real small ones." The crowd grew. Principal Nguyen pushed through, his face tight with concern. "The ambulance is 2 minutes out. Marcus, how long was she in there?" "Don't know. Window was fogged when I found her." A woman's scream cut through the murmur of voices. "Ava, oh God, mi niña!" Marisol Alvarez stumbled through the crowd, her face streaked with tears. She dropped beside Marcus, hands hovering over Ava, but not quite touching, as if afraid she'd make things worse. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I just went inside for 5 minutes to drop off her lunch money. The AC was on, I swear it was on, but the car, it must have turned off. Marisol's here, Marcus told Ava, who reached one small hand toward her nanny. See? Everyone's here to help you. Sirens wailed closer. The crowd parted for the ambulance, red lights painting the school walls. 2 EMTs jogged over with their gear. Sir, we'll take her from here. Marcus transferred Ava carefully to the female EMT. The child's fingers caught his shirt. Don't go, she whispered. I'll be right here. These nice people are going to make sure you're all better. He pressed Wooly into her arms. You hold tight to Wooly, okay? As the EMTs worked, checking vitals and starting an IV, another vehicle screeched into the lot. A silver Mercedes parked crooked across 2 spaces. Eleanor Carrington emerged, her usually perfect composure cracked wide open. Where is she? Ava! She rushed to the ambulance, designer heels clicking sharp against pavement. Her eyes took in the scene, her daughter on a stretcher, the shattered SUV window, Marcus still kneeling nearby with glass fragments glittering on his work pants. Ma'am, she's stable, the EMT assured her. Mild heat exhaustion, but we caught it in time. We're taking her to Memorial for fluids and observation. Eleanor's gaze found Marcus. Something shifted in her expression. Recognition, maybe, or the weight of what could have happened. You broke the window? He stood slowly, brushing glass from his knees. Yes, ma'am. Her mouth opened, closed. Behind her, Marisol sobbed quietly, arms wrapped around herself. The crowd watched, waiting. The parking lot filled with bodies, parents collecting their children early, teachers drawn by the commotion, maintenance staff abandoning their afternoon tasks. Marcus felt the crowd's energy shift, heard the sharp intake of breath as people recognized Eleanor Carrington. The CEO of Carrington Foods didn't usually grace the school pickup line. Mommy? Ava's voice, stronger now with the IV fluids working, carried from the ambulance. Eleanor rushed to her daughter's side, her tailored suit incongruous against the emergency vehicles. Her hands shook as she touched Ava's face. Baby, I'm here. Mommy's here. Behind her, Marisol pressed against the crowd's edge, her shoulders hunched. Mrs. Carrington, I'm so sorry. The car was running when I went inside. It was only supposed to be a minute. Not now, Marisol. Eleanor's voice cut sharp, though her eyes never left Ava. Marcus saw the nanny flinch, saw her step backward into the crowd. He remembered that look from his army days, someone bracing for the worst kind of consequences. Joy left something in my truck this morning, he said to no one in particular, moving toward his beat-up Ford. Said I might need it. From behind the driver's seat he pulled out a quilt, faded squares of blue and yellow and pink, sewn together by his wife Sarah during her first round of chemo. Joy had insisted on bringing it that morning, something about a feeling she couldn't explain. He walked back to the ambulance, the quilt soft in his calloused hands. This was my wife's. Joy thought someone might need it today. He draped it gently over Ava's small form. The child's fingers found the worn fabric, tracing the careful stitches. It's soft, she whispered. Softest thing we own. Marcus stepped back, looked at the crowd, faces he knew from years of driving their kids, fixing their buses, living in their community. Folks, can I ask something? The chatter died down. Even the EMTs paused in their preparations. I know we're all shook up, but right now there's a little girl who needs our strength, and there's people here carrying weight we can't see. His gaze found Marisol, then swept across the gathered parents, many still in their work uniforms, hospital scrubs, restaurant aprons, construction gear. How about we take a moment, send up something good? Mrs. Chen stepped forward first. Yes, please. Marcus bowed his head. Lord, we're standing here grateful. Grateful for instincts that made me look twice. Grateful for EMTs who know their work. Grateful for this little one's strength. Grateful, someone echoed. We lift up Ava for healing. We lift up her mama Eleanor, who got here fast as she could. And Lord, we especially lift up Marisol, who loves this child, who made a mistake any of us could make, when we're stretched too thin." A sob broke from Marisol. Mrs. Patterson from the cafeteria wrapped an arm around her. "We lift up every parent working 2 jobs, every caregiver juggling more than they can hold, every family trying to make it work when the system's stacked against them. Give us wisdom to help each other. Give us grace when we fall short. Amen." "Amen," the crowd responded, voices layered thick with emotion. Marcus opened his eyes to find half the crowd wiping away tears. Principal Nguyen cleared his throat twice before speaking. Eleanor stared at him, her expression unreadable. The EMT touched Eleanor's shoulder. "Ma'am, we need to transport now." "I'm riding with her," Eleanor's voice came out rough. "There's room for one more," the EMT said, glancing between Eleanor and Marisol. Eleanor hesitated, then nodded to the nanny. "Marisol, come. She'll want you there." Relief flooded Marisol's face. She climbed into the ambulance beside Ava, who immediately reached for her hand. Before the doors closed, Eleanor turned to Marcus. She pulled out her wallet, fingers fumbling with bills. "Please, let me. You saved her life. Whatever you want." Marcus shook his head. "Don't need that, ma'am. There must be something." Her voice cracked with desperation, to make this right, to pay a debt she felt in her bones. He looked at the crowd, at Mrs. Patterson still in her hairnet from the lunch shift, at Tom Rodriguez in his paint-stained coveralls, at the young teacher's aide bouncing a fussy toddler on her hip. "You want to help? Really help?" Marcus kept his voice gentle but firm. "Use that big company of yours. Set up cooling stations for after-school hours, emergency child care for when folks get called into extra shifts, real support for working families, so nobody has to choose between their job and their kids' safety." Eleanor's mouth opened, closed. A reporter who'd arrived for a school board story raised her phone, recording. Think about it." Marcus stepped back as the ambulance doors closed. "Your daughter's going to be fine, but there's other kids who might not be so lucky next time." The ambulance pulled away, sirens calling out across the small town. The crowd began to disperse, but conversations continued, animated, emotional, charged with possibility. Marcus walked to his truck, suddenly exhausted. Glass crunched under his boots, his shirt stuck to his back with dried sweat. Joy waited by the bike racks, her backpack bouncing as she ran to him. "Daddy, everyone's talking about you." "Hey, baby girl." He pulled her into a hug, breathing in her shampoo and crayon smell. She pulled back, studying his face with those eyes, so like her mother's. "You saved someone. Just did what anybody would do." Joy shook her head, a small smile playing at her lips. "You became a hero without even trying. Mama would say that's the only real kind." Marcus woke to knocking, not the polite tap of Mrs. Etta checking in, but insistent rapping that meant business. He glanced at the clock, 6:47 a.m. Joy padded out in her pajamas, rubbing sleep from her eyes. "Who's making all that noise?" "Stay here, baby." Marcus opened the door to find Tom Rodriguez from the hardware store, holding a box of brand-new window repair tools. "Heard you busted your tire iron yesterday." Tom thrust the box forward. "Can't have our hero working with broken tools." Before Marcus could protest, Mrs. Chen appeared on the walkway with a steaming casserole dish. "For dinner, you focus on important things. Y'all don't need to—" "Channel 7 ran your picture this morning." Tom grinned. "You holding that little girl, her mama's quilt around her, made my wife cry into her coffee." More neighbors appeared throughout the morning. The retired firefighter from 2 doors down dropped off homemade cookies. Teachers from school stopped between classes. Each one mentioned the photo, the prayer, the moment that had shifted something in their small town. Joy set up a thank you station at their kitchen table, writing cards while Marcus fixed coffee for visitors. She glowed with pride, occasionally catching his eye with a knowing look that said, "I told you so." "Your daddy's famous," her friend Keisha announced when she stopped by with her mother. "He's not famous." Joy carefully colored a heart on another card. "He just pays attention." That afternoon, Marcus was elbow deep in a bus engine when Principal Nguyen found him. You've got a visitor in my office. Marcus wiped his hands on a rag. If it's another reporter... It's Eleanor Carrington. The office felt smaller with Eleanor inside it. She stood by the window, Ava pressed against her leg, clutching that same stuffed lamb. The little girl looked better, color in her cheeks, eyes bright. When she spotted Marcus, she didn't hide her face like yesterday. Mrs. Carrington wanted to speak with you privately, Nguyen said, excusing himself. Eleanor's usual sharp edges had softened. Her designer suit remained pristine, but something in her posture had changed. Ava insisted on coming. She wanted to see you. The little girl stepped forward, holding out a folded piece of paper. Marcus knelt to her level, accepting the drawing. 2 stick figures under a yellow sun. One tall and brown, one small with yellow hair. That's you, Ava whispered. Saving me. That's beautiful, sweetheart. You feeling better? She nodded, then surprised him by stepping into a quick hug before retreating to her mother. Eleanor cleared her throat. I've been thinking about what you said yesterday, about real help. She pulled out a folder, hands steady now, CEO mode engaging but tempered with something new. I want to hire you. Short-term consultant position. Help me design what you called a safe lot program. Marcus straightened. Ma'am, I fix buses. You see problems others miss. You understand what working families need because you live it. She opened the folder, showing preliminary sketches, cooling stations, emergency childcare pods, trained monitors. I had my team work all night on this, but it's just corporate thinking. I need someone who knows the reality. I don't do politics, don't do boardrooms. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to help me build something that matters. 3 months, fair compensation. You keep your regular job, work with me in the afternoons. Marcus studied the sketches. They'd tried, but she was right. It looked like solutions designed by people who'd never worried about childcare falling through, never calculated if they had enough gas to make an extra pickup run. I need to think. Daddy, Joy stood in the doorway, backpack over one shoulder. Sorry, Principal Nguyen said I could come in. Eleanor smiled, the first genuine one Marcus had seen from her. You must be Joy. Yes, ma'am. Joy looked between them, reading the room with that uncanny instinct kids have. Is she offering you something good? A job helping families, Eleanor said, making sure what happened yesterday doesn't happen again. Joy turned to Marcus, her expression serious. Mama always said, when God opens a door, you walk through it. It's not that simple, baby girl. Sure it is. Joy adjusted her backpack. You can fix buses anywhere, but this is fixing something bigger. Marcus felt the weight of both their gazes. His daughter's certainty, Eleanor's careful hope. 3 months, he said finally. But I do it my way. No corporate nonsense. We talk to real families, visit real workplaces. Done. Eleanor's relief broke through her composure. Can you start Monday? They shook hands, Ava watching solemnly. As Eleanor gathered her things, she paused at the door. Thank you, again. I haven't been able to stop thinking about that prayer, about what you said. Her voice dropped. My company made millions last quarter, but we can't keep our own employees' kids safe. That changes now. After they left, Joy slipped her hand into Marcus's as they walked to the truck. Proud of you, Daddy? Yeah? Yeah, Mama's proud too. I can feel it. That night, Marcus tucked the quilt around Joy, its familiar weight a comfort. He sat in his worn recliner, Bible open but unread in his lap. Through the thin walls, he heard Mrs. Etta's television, the Rodriguez kids arguing over toys, the ordinary symphony of their neighborhood. Lord, if this is your plan, help me see it through. 2 days later, the auditorium buzzed with the kind of energy that meant money and influence had gathered in one place. Marcus tugged at his collar, the only dress shirt he owned, borrowed from his church clothes. Eleanor had insisted he attend, said it would help people see the human side of the program. Stop fidgeting. Eleanor murmured beside him, though her own fingers drummed against her portfolio. You look fine." The room filled with small-town royalty, business owners, church leaders, school officials, all here because Eleanor Carrington had asked, and when Carrington Foods asked, people showed up. Their biggest processing plant employed half the county. Preston Vale worked the room like he owned it, which in many ways he did. The board chair's silver hair caught the overhead lights as he moved between clusters of people, shaking hands, clapping shoulders. His laugh boomed across conversations. Marcus had only seen him from a distance before, at ceremonies, dedications, anywhere a oversized check needed presenting. "That's our biggest hurdle," Eleanor whispered, nodding toward Preston. "He controls the board's vote. If he doesn't buy in—" A woman in a maid's uniform slipped through the side door, a young boy's hand clasped in hers. Marcus recognized the uniform, Preston's estate management company. The woman kept her head down, steering toward the back rows, but the boy pulled against her grip, fascinated by the crowd. "Miguel, please," she whispered in accented English. "We sit quietly." The boy couldn't have been more than 5 or 6, with Preston's same sharp jaw, those distinctive green eyes that looked strange against his brown skin. He wore clean but worn clothes, sneakers with cartoon characters fading on the sides. Eleanor stepped to the podium, tapping the microphone. "Thank you all for coming. As you've heard, Tuesday's incident opened my eyes to a crisis hiding in plain sight." She launched into her presentation, statistics, projections, costs. Marcus half listened, his attention drawn to the boy who'd escaped his mother's grip. Miguel wandered between the folding chairs, drawn like a moth to the cluster where Preston held court. The Safe Lot program would provide cooling stations, emergency child care, and trained monitors, Eleanor continued. "Mr. Hale has agreed to help design a pilot that serves real families, not just—" The boy stood directly in front of Preston now. The millionaire glanced down, smile automatic, the kind reserved for voters' children. But Miguel didn't smile back. He stared up with those matching green eyes, head tilted like he was solving a puzzle. "Hello there," Preston said, voice carrying that politician's warmth. "Are you lost?" Miguel shook his head slowly. Then, in a voice that pierced through Eleanor's presentation, clear as a bell, in the sudden quiet between her sentences, "Mommy says you're my daddy." The words hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. Preston's face drained of color so fast Marcus thought he might faint. The mother, Miguel's mother, stood frozen halfway down the aisle, her hand pressed to her mouth. Someone gasped. Then another. Phones rose like salutes, cameras clicking, video rolling. The school board members stepped back from Preston as if he was contagious. That's... Preston's silver tongue failed him. Miguel stood his ground, those green eyes steady. "She says you gave her money to stay quiet, but I don't have to stay quiet because I didn't take any money." The mother rushed forward, scooping Miguel into her arms. "Lo siento, I'm sorry, please." Tears streaked her face as she backed toward the exit. "He doesn't understand." "Rosa?" Preston's voice cracked on the name. The confirmation in how he said it, the recognition, told everyone what they needed to know. "We're leaving," Rosa said, clutching Miguel tight. We won't bother." "Wait!" Eleanor called from the podium, but Rosa was already pushing through the doors, Miguel peering over her shoulder with confusion. The auditorium erupted. Voices layered over each other, phones flashing, the story already racing through social media before anyone could process what had happened. Marcus saw the calculation in every face: scandal, leverage, ammunition. Preston stood in the eye of the storm, his usual command shattered. His wife, Marcus remembered her from charity functions, wasn't here. Small mercy. "This meeting is adjourned," Principal Nguyen announced, though nobody was listening. Eleanor abandoned the podium, pushing through the crowd to Marcus. "This changes everything," she said, voice tight. "The board won't touch the program now, not with this circus." Marcus watched Preston stumble toward the exit, his handlers trying to form a protective circle that kept breaking against the press of bodies and questions. That little boy, Marcus said. He just wanted to know his father. Eleanor's expression softened, then hardened again. Preston's lawyers will bury this by morning. They always do. She gathered her materials with sharp movements, which means we have tonight to get ahead of it. The narrative will shift, it always does. They'll find a way to make this about my program, say I orchestrated it somehow. You didn't even know they were here. Since when has truth mattered in damage control? She pulled out her phone, already typing. I need to call an emergency board session before Preston's people can regroup. Mrs. Etta appeared at Marcus's elbow. He hadn't noticed her in the crowd. That poor child, she said, watching the door where Rosa had fled. And that poor mother, she looked terrified. She probably just lost her job, Marcus said quietly. Maybe worse. The auditorium slowly emptied, leaving echoes of scandal in its wake. Through the high windows, Marcus could see news vans already pulling into the lot. By morning, their small town would be famous for all the wrong reasons. Eleanor touched his arm. The program, everything we planned, it might be dead before it starts. Marcus thought of Miguel's brave, clear voice, of Rosa's terror, of Ava sweating in that locked car. No, he said. We find another way. We always do. The morning paper landed on Marcus's doorstep with a thud that felt heavier than usual. He unfolded it while Joy poured cereal, and there it was, his photo from the rescue beside a grainy shot of Preston Vale's stunned face. The headline tried to do both stories at once. Local heroes rescue, overshadowed by paternity bombshell. That's you, Dad, Joy pointed at the photo with her spoon, milk dripping onto the table. Eat your breakfast, baby girl. But Marcus couldn't stop reading. The article twisted itself in knots, trying to cover both stories without taking sides. Preston's lawyers had already issued a statement calling the boy's claim baseless and suggesting the mother suffered from mental health challenges. No direct denial, Marcus noticed, just mud in the water. His phone buzzed, a text from Eleanor. Don't check social media. He checked anyway. The comment sections were war zones. Someone claiming to be a school insider suggested Marcus had known Ava was in the car, that he'd waited for the right moment to play hero. Another anonymous source wondered why a bus mechanic happened to have a tire iron so handy. The lies spread like oil on water, impossible to contain. Dad? Joy watched him over her cereal bowl. You've got your worried face. Just grown-up nonsense. She nodded sagely. The kind where people say mean things because they're scared? Sometimes his daughter was too perceptive for 10 years old. Eleanor sat in the emergency board meeting, feeling like she was drowning in her own conference room. The faces around the polished table, men and women she'd built this company with, looked at her like she was toxic. Stocks down 3% since the news broke, CFO Harrison said, sliding a tablet across the table. Investors are spooked. By a child asking about his father? Eleanor kept her voice level. By association with scandal. Board Chair Williams, Preston's golf buddy, folded his hands. The optics are terrible. Your new program director is all over the news, and now Preston's situation is being linked to Carrington Foods. We need distance. Marcus Hale saved my daughter's life, and we're grateful. Williams didn't sound grateful, but his continued involvement invites scrutiny we can't afford, and the nanny, Marisol. Her immigration status makes her a liability. If ICE gets involved, if there's an investigation, our name gets dragged through. She's documented. She has a work permit, which expires in 3 months. Harrison had done his homework. Do we really want that exposure? The headlines write themselves. CEO employs questionable childcare. But Eleanor's phone lit up with another PR crisis alert. Someone had posted a video, heavily edited, that made it look like Marcus broke the window while Ava was sleeping peacefully. The fake audio overlay suggested he was showboating. This is character assassination. This is business. Williams leaned forward. Distance yourself from both of them, today, or we'll convene an emergency shareholder vote about leadership. The threat hung between them like a blade. The Safe Lot program is suspended pending review. William stood, the others following. Send the email by 5 o'clock, Eleanor. Don't make us send it for you. Marcus read the email 3 times, each word cutting deeper. Dear Mr. Hale, after careful consideration, Carrington Foods has decided to suspend your consulting arrangement pending a comprehensive review of the program parameters. We thank you for your initial input and will contact you if circumstances change. Regards, Carrington Foods Human Resources. Not even Eleanor's signature, just corporate ice. Joy looked up from her homework. Bad news? The job with Mrs. Carrington isn't happening right now. Because of the Whisper Boy? Marcus set down his phone. How'd you know about that? Everyone knows, Dad. Katie's mom said Mr. Vale is pretending the boy made it up, but Katie says the boy looks exactly like him. She chewed her pencil. Why do grown-ups lie about stuff everyone can see? Fear, mostly. Of what? Marcus pulled her close. Of losing what they think matters. Money, reputation, control. But not the true stuff, like being someone's dad? Grown-ups in suits are afraid of truth sometimes. Joy considered this. Then we keep telling it anyway, right? Like Pastor Ruth says, truth sets people free even when they don't want it to. When'd you get so wise? Mom's genes, Joy said matter-of-factly, and Marcus's heart squeezed. Across town, Marisol sat in her studio apartment, blinds drawn against the world. The TV played on mute, Preston Vale at a podium, denying everything. The boy's mother, nowhere to be seen. Already erased. Her phone had 23 messages from Rosa, Miguel's mother. They'd known each other from church before Rosa stopped coming, too ashamed. The messages were all variations of, I'm sorry, and I didn't mean for this to happen. Marisol knew she should respond, offer comfort. But her own terror was too large. The board meeting footage kept replaying online, and in every version, someone mentioned the negligent nanny. Her name wasn't public yet, but it would be. These things always came out. Her work permit expired in 93 days. She'd been so careful, so legal, so proper. But none of that mattered when powerful people needed someone to blame. A text from Eleanor. I'm sorry. My hands are tied. Your position is secure for now. For now. Marisol pulled her knees to her chest. Through the thin walls, she could hear her neighbor's television, the same news story on repeat. Tomorrow she'd have to face Ava, explain why the world had gone crazy, pretend everything was fine. She thought of Marcus's prayer in the parking lot, how he'd included her in the circle of grace. But grace couldn't fix immigration law or corporate cowardice. Outside, night fell on a town splitting apart at carefully hidden seams. The morning light filtered through stained glass as Marcus slipped into his usual pew, 3 rows from the back. St. Matthew's wasn't packed. It never was these days. But the faithful were there. Mrs. Etta Coleman caught his eye from across the aisle, her silver hair crowned by a lavender hat that had seen 40 years of Sundays. After the service, she cornered him by the coffee urn. You look like a man carrying the world, just trying to figure out what's mine to carry. Mrs. Etta poured 2 cups, her weathered hands steady. My Harold used to say that storms don't build faith. They reveal what's already there, or what ain't. Your Harold was wise. Also said that faith without works is dead, but works without wisdom is just noise. She studied him over her glasses. You prayed public in that parking lot, made folks uncomfortable with all that raw grace. Good, comfort never changed nothing. Cost me the job, though. Job? Mrs. Etta snorted. Boy, you got handed a calling. Those suits downtown, they're scared of what you started. Scared people do foolish things. Like destroying a man's reputation. Like thinking they can. She patted his arm. Faith often starts in storms, Marcus. The question ain't whether you'll get wet. It's whether you'll keep walking on water or sink from looking at the waves. Before Marcus could respond, Pastor Ruth appeared, her expression serious. Marcus, you should know, Reporters have been calling the church, asking about your character, your service record, your wife's death. His stomach tightened. What did you tell them? The truth. That you're a man of integrity who's never sought spotlight nor shrunk from duty. She lowered her voice. But they're digging. Someone wants you discredited. Mrs. Etta set down her cup hard enough to rattle the saucer. Then we'd best give them something else to write about. Eleanor's corner office overlooked the city, but she saw none of it. 2 documents lay before her on imported mahogany. The first, drafted by legal, distanced Carrington Foods from Marisol Alvarez, citing performance concerns and scheduling irregularities. Lies wrapped in corporate language. The second minimized Marcus's involvement, painting him as a well-meaning bystander who'd been offered a courtesy position that was always temporary. Her phone buzzed. Harrison from PR. Need those signed within the hour. Times wants a statement. She pushed both papers aside. Through her glass wall, she watched her employees move through their Sunday shift. How many were single parents? How many had left children with elderly neighbors or siblings too young to babysit? How many had made the same impossible choice Marisol had, work or childcare, never both? Her daughter's voice from that morning echoed, "Why can't Mr. Marcus come to dinner anymore?" Eleanor had no good answer, only safe ones. Another text from Harrison. Board meeting at 3. Williams expects compliance. She turned both statements face down. Let them wait. Dad, we were practicing this little light, and Ava started crying. Marcus walked slowly beside Joy, matching her smaller steps. The afternoon stretched golden between the church and home, one of those perfect September days that made everything else seem fixable. What happened? She asked why her daddy wasn't around, not her mom's ex-husband, her real daddy, like how I have you. Joy kicked a stone, watching it skitter. I told her not everyone gets a dad who stays, but that didn't help. Marcus's chest ached for both girls. Then she said something weird. Joy stopped walking. She said she wished you could teach her how to pray like you did in the parking lot. She said her mom doesn't know how, just does the quick church kind. Nothing wrong with any honest prayer. I know, but Dad... Joy looked up at him. She said when you prayed over her, she felt safe. Even though she was sick and scared, she felt held. The words hit Marcus like physical weight. He'd thought he was just comforting a frightened child, but maybe... Can she come over? Learn the real kind of praying? It's complicated, little bird. Because of Suits being scared? Yeah. Joy resumed walking, her small hand finding his. Mom would say complicated is just another word for important. The kitchen smelled of collard greens and cornbread, familiar as breathing. Marcus diced onions while Joy set the table for 2, same as every Sunday. But tonight felt different. The suspension email sat like a stone in his chest. The warnings from Pastor Ruth, the weight of decision. He could step back, stay quiet, let the storm pass over, keep Joy safe from whatever mud the board wanted to sling. He'd been nobody before. He could be nobody again. But Ava's tears, Marisol's terror, the boy's small voice claiming his father. Truth needed defenders, especially when lies came dressed in pressed suits. After dinner, after Joy's bath and bedtime story, Marcus sat alone at the kitchen table. His worn Bible fell open to James, Faith Without Works. The pages were soft from years of turning, notes in the margins from Sarah's hand and his own. Outside, a dog barked. Inside, the clock ticked toward Monday, and whatever came next. Marcus placed both palms flat on the table, feeling the wood's grain, solid and real. Lord, he whispered to the empty room, I don't know if I'm strong enough for what you're asking. The house settled around him, beams adjusting to night's cooling. He thought of Mrs. Etta's words about storms revealing faith, of Joy's certainty that truth mattered more than comfort, of a little girl wishing someone would teach her to pray with her whole heart. Marcus opened to a blank page in the Bible's back cover, picked up a pen, and wrote, September 15th, knees first, sleeves rolled after. Then he began making a list of what the community really needed, not what the board would approve, not what kept everyone comfortable. What was true, what was right, what honored Sarah's memory and Joy's future. The clock moved toward midnight. Marcus kept writing. The Sunrise Diner sat on Route 40, far enough from town that board members wouldn't stumble in for coffee. Marcus arrived first, choosing a corner booth with clear sightlines, old habits from Afghanistan. The vinyl seats cracked under his weight. Eleanor's Mercedes pulled in 5 minutes later. She'd traded her usual power suit for jeans and a university sweatshirt, hair pulled back. She slid opposite him, glancing around before speaking. "I'm done letting them control this narrative." The waitress, Betty, poured coffee without asking. She'd served Marcus for years, knew to leave the pot. "The board?" Marcus kept his voice level. "They want me to sign statements. Distance the company from you, blame Marisol." Eleanor pulled folded papers from her bag. "I won't do it." "Could cost you." "Some things cost more to keep." She spread blueprints across the Formica table. "I've been sketching this since 3 a.m. Tell me what's missing." Marcus studied her drawings, shade structures for the parking lot, color-coded patrol schedules, emergency supply stations. CEO thinking, all logistics and efficiency. But she'd missed the human elements. "Where do the kids wait while parents work late?" Eleanor's pen paused. "What about the grandmother watching 3 grandkids because their parents have double shifts? Where does she rest?" Understanding crossed her face. She flipped to a fresh page. They worked through 2 pots of coffee, Marcus's practical knowledge meeting Eleanor's resources. Shade tents with misting fans, volunteer patrols during peak heat, emergency training for all staff, not just management, a cooling room with books and toys. "We can't do this officially yet," Eleanor said, "but I have discretionary funds. We could run a trial, prove it works." "Mrs. Etta's been saying her church wants to help. Real action, not just prayer meetings." "Would she?" "Oh, already asked. Her kitchen table's waiting." Eleanor smiled, the first genuine one he'd seen from her. It changed her whole face, made her look younger, less armored. Betty refilled their cups one last time. As Eleanor reached for her wallet, the waitress waved her off. "Marcus's money's no good here. Neither is yours, if you're with him." Outside, beside their cars, Eleanor hesitated. "Why are you doing this, really? You could walk away." Marcus thought of Joy's question about Ava learning to pray, of Marisol's quiet terror, of the boy claiming his father. "My wife used to say courage is just love wearing work boots." Eleanor's eyes softened. Smart woman. The smartest? Mrs. Etta's kitchen smelled like heaven. Cornbread in the oven, greens on the stove, sweet tea sweating in a pitcher. Her dining table, scarred from decades of family meals, held their makeshift command center. "Nobody plans revolution on an empty stomach," Mrs. Etta declared, setting down plates. Joy and Ava sat on the floor, teaching Etta's ancient cat to play with yarn. The girls' laughter punctuated the serious talk above. Marisol arrived last, shoulders hunched, like she expected to be turned away. Mrs. Etta pulled her straight into a hug. "You sit right here, child. We need your eyes on this." They spread Eleanor's revised plans across the table. Marisol's input proved invaluable. She knew which parents struggled most, which kids had medical conditions, where the blind spots were in the current pickup system. "The teachers help when they can," Marisol said quietly, "but they're overwhelmed. And the other nannies, the housekeepers, we watch out for each other, but it's not enough." "It's a start," Marcus said. "Community always is." Pastor Ruth arrived as the sun set, bringing 2 more church ladies and a contractor who owed the church a favor. The table grew crowded with ideas, sketches, phone numbers. "Trial run next Saturday," Eleanor decided. 1 tent, 4 volunteers, emergency supplies. We document everything, temperatures, number of kids, parent responses. "I'll have the church ladies there with lemonade," Mrs. Etta promised. "Makes everything look less threatening to suspicious folks." Joy piped up from the floor. Can me and Ava help? We could read to the little kids." The adults exchanged glances. Eleanor nodded slowly. "Best idea yet," Marcus said. The walk home stretched under streetlights that flickered like fireflies. Joy skipped beside Marcus, her hand swinging in his, humming the hymn from choir practice. "Daddy, feels like we're fixing the whole world." "Just our corner of it. But if everyone fixed their corner?" She spun in a circle, arms wide. "Mrs. Etta says that's how quilts work, one square at a time until you have something that keeps everybody warm." Marcus thought of Sarah's quilt, now carefully folded in Eleanor's office, waiting to become a symbol of something bigger. "Your mama would have loved this." Joy stopped skipping, looked up at him with eyes wise beyond her 10 years. "She does love it, Daddy. She's watching." They walked in comfortable silence, crickets singing the day to sleep. Through windows, families gathered around televisions, kitchen tables, ordinary life continuing while they planned small revolutions. "Think it'll work?" Joy asked as they reached their door. Marcus thought of Eleanor's determination, Marisol's quiet courage, Mrs. Etta's faith made practical. "With this team? Yeah, little bird, I think it will." Inside, he tucked Joy into bed, said prayers that felt more hopeful than they had in months. Downstairs, his phone buzzed. "Eleanor, thank you for not letting me do this alone." Marcus typed back, "Nobody fixes their corner alone." He set the phone aside, pulled out his Bible, and added to his earlier note, September 16th, "Sometimes courage looks like a kitchen table full of neighbors who won't quit." Tuesday afternoon, Mrs. Etta's living room became a sanctuary for two little girls who needed each other more than anyone realized. Joy spread coloring books across the coffee table while Ava clutched her stuffed lamb, watching everything with careful eyes. "This one's David and Goliath," Joy explained, sliding a page toward Ava. "Daddy says sometimes the smallest person can be the bravest." Ava picked up a blue crayon, coloring David's robe with slow, deliberate strokes. "My mommy and daddy yell like giants." Joy didn't look up from her own coloring. "When?" "At night, when they think I'm sleeping." Ava switched to a yellow crayon. "Mommy throws papers. Daddy slams doors." Mrs. Etta, knitting in her recliner, kept her needles clicking steadily. Sometimes the best comfort was just being present. "Want to know a secret?" Joy whispered. Ava nodded. "When my mama was sick, I used to hide under my quilt and sing. Made me feel like God was hugging me." "Teach me?" Joy's voice rose clear and sweet. "Jesus loves me. This I know." Ava joined in, tentative at first, then stronger. Their voices blended like sugar in tea, filling the small room with something bigger than sound. Wednesday brought rain that drummed against the church basement windows. Marcus found Marisol there, helping sort donated clothes for the thrift sale, her hands shaking as she folded a child's sweater. "They took my cousin last month," she said without preamble. "Traffic stop. Her kids came home from school to an empty house." Marcus set down the box he'd been carrying. "That why you're scared? Eleanor's lawyers say they can help, but—" She smoothed the sweater again and again. "Papers don't stop hate. Don't stop people who see us as problems to solve instead of people trying to live. You matter to God and to this town." Marisol laughed, brittle as autumn leaves. "God maybe. The town? They see the brown girl who almost killed the white CEO's baby. That's not what happened. Doesn't matter. Stories get told the way people want to hear them." She finally set the sweater in the donation pile. "But Ava loves me. That has to count for something. It counts for everything." Pastor Ruth descended the stairs, arms full of more donations. "Marisol, honey, Mrs. Chen from the restaurant wants to know if you can help with her grandkids next week. Paying cash, no questions." Marisol's eyes welled. She knows you're good people. That's all that matters." Thursday evening, Pastor Ruth's presence filled Mrs. Etta's kitchen like a tent revival. She'd brought 3 more church members and a whiteboard she'd borrowed from Sunday school. "This isn't charity," she declared, drawing circles on the board. "This is justice. Every parent who works deserves to know their child is safe. Every worker deserves dignity, papers or no papers." The contractor, Bill, studied Eleanor's sketches. "These tents'll run about $300 each, but I know a guy who knows a guy, might get them donated if we promise good publicity." "No publicity yet," Eleanor said firmly. "We prove it works first." "Smart. Under-promise, over-deliver." Pastor Ruth turned to Marisol. "How many families you think would use this?" "At least 20 just in Ava's school, more if word spreads." Joy and Ava sat at the breakfast nook, making colorful signs. "Cool Kids Zone" and "Parents work hard, kids stay safe." "The grammar needs work," Eleanor murmured, but she smiled watching them. "The heart's perfect," Marcus countered. Mrs. Etta served her cornbread with honey butter, and the room settled into the rhythm of neighbors becoming family. Plans crystallized: volunteer shifts, supply lists, emergency protocols. "What about Preston?" someone asked. "He finds out about this, he'll shut it down." "Let him try," Pastor Ruth said. "I've got receipts on half his city council. They want to play politics with children's lives. I'll preach about it, by name." Friday evening painted the sky purple and gold. Marcus and Joy walked Ava and Marisol home, taking the long way through the park. The girls ran ahead, chasing fireflies that blinked like scattered stars. "Tell me about Daniel," Ava called back. "The lion won." Joy launched into the story with dramatic gestures, making Ava giggle. "And God shut the lions' mouths, just like that, because Daniel was brave and prayed even when the king said not to." "I want to be brave like Daniel," Ava said. "You already are," Joy assured her. "You were brave in that hot car, holding on to Lambie and waiting for help." Marcus and Marisol walked slower, letting the girls range ahead. "She's different with Joy," Marisol observed. "Lighter, like she remembers how to be 6. Kids know what they need. We just have to listen." Eleanor's car sat in the circular drive of her massive house, but she hadn't gone inside. She watched through the windshield as her daughter approached, actually skipping, something she hadn't seen in months. Ava waved enthusiastically at her mother before following Marisol inside. Marcus noticed Eleanor and walked over. Through the open window, he saw her crying. "First real smile since the divorce papers," she whispered. "Kids are resilient. They just need to know they're loved." "I've been so busy protecting her from scandal, I forgot to just let her be a kid." Joy ran back, tugged Marcus's hand. "Can Ava come to church Sunday, please?" Eleanor wiped her eyes, managed a watery smile. "I think that could be arranged." As they walked home, Joy hummed her mother's favorite hymn. Marcus felt something shifting, like soil preparing for seeds. Tomorrow they'd test their trial run, but tonight peace settled over their corner of the world like one of Mrs. Etta's quilts, patched together from different pieces but somehow whole. Monday morning arrived wrapped in gray clouds that matched Marcus's mood. He'd barely stepped into the school's maintenance garage when Tom, the head custodian, pulled him aside. "You need to see this." Tom's phone screen showed a grainy video, the SUV rescue from an angle that made everything look wrong. "Been making rounds since yesterday." The post's caption read, "Hero or opportunist. Window broken while child sleeping peacefully. Follow the money." Marcus handed the phone back. His hand stayed steady. Afghanistan had taught him that much, but his stomach churned. "Nobody who matters believes this garbage," Tom said. Except by lunch, the whispers followed him through hallways like smoke. Teachers who'd thanked him last week now gave him careful nods, nothing more. In the cafeteria, he overheard 2 staff members debating whether the whole thing had been blown out of proportion. "Marcus Hale to the principal's office," the intercom crackled. Principal Nguyen sat behind his desk looking like he'd aged 5 years since Friday. A woman in a severe suit occupied the visitor's chair, legal pad balanced on her knee. "Marcus, this is Janet Morrison from the board's legal department." She didn't offer her hand. "Mr. Hale, We need to discuss your recent visibility. My visibility? Your involvement with Eleanor Carrington's family has attracted attention, some of it unwanted. She tapped her pen against the pad. The board is concerned about liability. What if other employees start breaking car windows? What if someone gets hurt trying to be a hero? Principal Nguyen shifted uncomfortably. Marcus acted to save a child's life. According to his version of events, Janet's smile could have frozen July. We've also become aware of certain financial difficulties in your past. VA debts, late rent payments. Some might question whether this rescue was motivated by the possibility of reward. The words hung in the air like a slap. Marcus kept his voice level. I turned down Mrs. Carrington's money to ask for a bigger payoff, a consulting position, to help other kids. So you say. Janet closed her pad. I'd advise you to keep a lower profile for your daughter's sake. Single fathers with financial struggles. Well, people talk. Stability matters for children. The threat landed exactly where she'd aimed it. Marcus stood slowly, military straight. Are we done here? Principal Nguyen walked him to the door, speaking low. I'm sorry, Marcus. My hands are tied. I know it. Marcus paused. But you might want to ask yourself whose hands are doing the tying. That evening, Mrs. Etta's kitchen felt like a war room. Eleanor paced while Marisol twisted a dish towel into knots. Pastor Ruth sat solid as a church pew, radiating righteous anger. They threatened Joy? Mrs. Etta's voice could have peeled paint. Not directly, but the implication was clear. Marcus slumped in his chair. Maybe I should step back, for her sake. Don't you dare. Joy stood in the doorway, school uniform rumpled, chin high. That's what they want, for good people to get scared and quit. Joy, honey, this is grown-up talk. No, it's not. She marched to the table. It's about what's right. You taught me that. When kids at school said mean things about Mama being sick, you said truth is louder than lies. We just have to keep speaking it. Eleanor stopped pacing. She's right. They're trying to isolate us, make us doubt ourselves. Truth is louder, Daddy, Joy repeated, taking his hand. Just wait. God's not done yet. Pastor Ruth smiled like a general spotting reinforcements. Out of the mouths of babes. Across town, Preston Vale's home office looked like a legal library had exploded. 3 lawyers sat around his mahogany desk, documents spread like tarot cards, predicting disaster. The test results are conclusive, the lead attorney said. 99.9% probability of paternity. Preston poured himself another scotch, his third since dinner. Options? Pay her off, quietly, non-disclosure agreement, monthly support, no contact. She already went public with the boy's whisper, which can be dismissed as a child's fantasy unless you acknowledge it. The second lawyer cleared his throat. There's another issue. Your position on the school board becomes complicated if people find out I have an illegitimate son with my housekeeper. Preston laughed, bitter as black coffee. Complicated, that's one word for it. Through the window, he could see the pool house where Maria had lived for 2 years, where they'd make the offer, he said, generous enough that she can't refuse. And if she does refuse? Preston's jaw clenched. Then we make things difficult. Her immigration status isn't exactly sterling, is it? The lawyers exchanged glances. The lead one chose his words carefully. That could backfire spectacularly. Everything about this could backfire. Preston drained his glass. But Marcus Hale lit the fuse when he made his little prayer circle. Now everyone's watching, everyone's judging. The whole town's turned into a revival meeting. Perhaps that's not entirely bad, the third lawyer ventured. Public repentance plays well these days. Redemption narratives. Preston's look could have withered roses. I built my reputation for 30 years. I'm not throwing it away for some feel-good moment. But alone later, after the lawyers left, Preston stood at his son's photo, the one Maria had sent months ago before everything exploded. The boy had his eyes, his stubborn chin. The storm was definitely brewing. The question was who'd be left standing when it passed. Saturday morning broke clear and bright, the September heat already building by 7 o'clock. Marcus arrived at the school lot to find volunteers already setting up cooling tents, their white canvas tops like sails of hope against the blue sky. "Over here with the water stations." Mrs. Etta directed traffic like a general, her church ladies' brigade armed with coolers and determination. Eleanor emerged from her car looking nothing like her usual CEO self, jeans, sneakers, hair pulled back. She caught Marcus's eye and nodded. They'd agreed to push forward despite the threats, despite the whispers. Today would be their answer. By 9, families streamed in, the same lot where Marcus had shattered a glass. To Save a Child now bloomed with community. Volunteers handed out bright yellow safety flyers. Never leave a child in a hot car, while others helped parents fill out child care assistance forms. "Daddy, look!" Joy tugged Marcus toward the small platform they'd built near the playground. "Mrs. Pastor Ruth brought her whole choir." "Just the children's choir," Pastor Ruth corrected, adjusting the microphone. "But that's enough to shake heaven." At 10 sharp, Pastor Ruth stepped to the mic. The crowd quieted, even the toddlers sensing something important was happening. "Lord, we gather in this place of near tragedy turned blessing. We ask you to turn our hearts toward each other, to see need before judgment, to offer hands before criticism. Make us a community that catches those who fall. Amen." "Amen," the crowd echoed. "Now then," Pastor Ruth smiled, "our children have something to share." 12 small voices lined up, Joy and Ava front and center. Ava clutched her stuffed lamb, but when Joy took her free hand, she stood taller. The opening notes of "Amazing Grace" floated across the lot. Pure, sweet, innocent. The kind of singing that bypasses the brain and goes straight to the soul. Amazing grace. How sweet the sound. Marcus watched tears streak down faces throughout the crowd. A construction worker pulled off his hard hat to wipe his eyes. A grandmother clutched her purse, lips moving with the words, "I once was lost, but now am found." Ava's small voice rose clear on the second verse, and Eleanor pressed her fingers to her mouth, shoulders shaking. When the children finished, the applause lasted so long that Joy giggled and curtsied, making Ava copy her. Marisol approached the microphone next, hands trembling. Marcus gave her an encouraging nod. "My name is Marisol Alvarez. I take care of children." Her accent thickened with nerves, but she pressed on. "That day with Ava, it was my fault. I was trying to pick up medication for my mother and bring Ava to ballet, and the pharmacy line was so long, and I thought—" She stopped, composed herself. "Working parents, we need help, not blame, not fear. Help." When Mr. Marcus asked everyone to pray for caregivers that day, it was first time anyone saw us, really saw us. She stepped back quickly, but the applause followed her, warm and genuine. Eleanor took her place, gripping the podium edges. "I'm Eleanor Carrington, and I need to apologize." The crowd stilled. "My company, many companies, we create impossible situations. We demand long hours but don't provide child care. We pay wages that require multiple jobs but offer no flexibility. We put productivity over people every single day." She looked directly at Marisol. "When my daughter could have died, my first thought wasn't gratitude for her rescue. It was damage control, how to spin it, how to protect the stock price. That's how sick our priorities have become." Her voice strengthened. "But this man," she gestured to Marcus, "showed me another way. He could have taken money. Instead, he asked for change, real change. Starting today, Carrington Foods commits to funding emergency child care for all employees. Starting today, we choose people over profit." The crowd erupted. Eleanor stepped down and Ava ran to her, both of them crying. Preston Vale chose that moment to stride forward, every inch the benevolent millionaire. His smile gleamed like his cufflinks. "What an inspiring morning," he boomed without the microphone voice carrying. "In that spirit, I'm honored to make an anonymous donation. Well, Not so anonymous now. He paused for the expected chuckle. Of $50,000 to this wonderful initiative. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Preston pulled out an oversized check, the kind used for photo opportunities. Cameras clicked. People cheered. Marcus watched Preston soak in the adulation, saw how his eyes never quite met anyone's directly, how his smile never reached those eyes. But the money was real, and it would help real families. Sometimes, Mrs. Etta murmured beside him, God uses crooked sticks to draw straight lines. As the event wound down, families lingered, reluctant to leave this bubble of hope. Children ran between the cooling tents, their laughter like music. Parents exchanged numbers, making plans for babysitting co-ops. Marcus helped fold tables. Joy beside him, with a basket of cookies, Mrs. Etta's church ladies insisted they take home. Daddy, today was perfect. Was it? He smiled down at her. Even with Mr. Vale's big show? Joy selected a snickerdoodle, considering. Mama used to say that sometimes people do right things for wrong reasons, but that doesn't make the right thing wrong. Your mama was smart. You're smart too. You made all this happen. We all did. Together. They walked home through streets that felt different somehow, lighter, like possibility had taken root in the cracks of sidewalks, ready to bloom. Neither of them noticed the van parked across from their duplex, or the camera lens tracking their movement, or the way their image would look tomorrow, spliced and edited into something sinister. For now there was just a father and daughter, carrying cookies and hope home, their shadows long in the afternoon sun, stretching toward a future that finally felt bright. 2 nights after Community Day, Marcus was helping Joy with her spelling homework when his phone buzzed. Deshawn, an Army buddy who worked security at the mall, never called this late. Marcus, man, you need to see something. Check your email, now. The video loaded slowly on Marcus's old laptop. At first, it looked like security footage from that September day, grainy but clearly him approaching Eleanor's SUV. Then the image sharpened unnaturally, and a voiceover began. Local man Marcus Hale, seen here calmly approaching an unlocked vehicle with a child safely napping inside. The footage jumped. Now he was swinging the tire iron, but the timing was wrong. The window shattered in slow motion while the voice continued. Sources say Hale had been watching the lot for opportunities to play hero. That's not... Marcus stopped. Joy had crept up behind him. Daddy, why are they lying? He closed the laptop. Sometimes people twist truth into knots, baby, but knots can be undone. She climbed into his lap, and he held her close, feeling her heartbeat against his chest. Neither of them slept much that night. By morning, the video had spread like spilled oil. Channel 7 ran it at 6, 8, and 10. The headline under Marcus's face read, Hero or Opportunist? Questions emerge about viral rescue. Mrs. Etta called before breakfast. Don't you dare come outside yet. Reporters are circling like buzzards. Through the blinds, Marcus counted 3 news vans. His phone rang. Eleanor. Marcus, I'm so sorry. The board called an emergency meeting. They're saying I have to... Her voice caught. They're freezing the program funds pending investigation. I have to formally suspend you. On paper. Just on paper, you understand? I understand. He watched Joy pour cereal, pretending not to listen. We'll fight this. My lawyers are already... Eleanor, it's okay. Truth doesn't need lawyers. After he hung up, Joy pushed her bowl away. I'm not hungry. You need to eat something. Why, so I'm strong when everyone at school says my daddy's a liar? Before he could answer, his phone buzzed. A text from Principal Nguyen. Preston Vale withdrew donation. Board meeting tomorrow. I'm sorry. $50,000. Gone. All those families counting on help vanished with a banker's phone call. The knock came at 2:47 that afternoon. Marcus knew because he'd been watching the clock, waiting for Joy's bus, when the sedan pulled up instead. 2 people stood at his door, a young woman with a tablet and an older man with the tired eyes of someone who'd seen too much. Mr. Hale, I'm Sandra Chen from Child Protective Services. This is my colleague Robert Marsh. We received a concerning report about your daughter's welfare. The world tilted. A report? From who? We're not at liberty to say. May we come in? Marcus stepped aside, his training kicking in. Cooperate, stay calm, don't give them reasons. The apartment was clean, thank God. Joy's homework covered the kitchen table. Her choir dress hung pressed on the door. Is Joy home? School bus should. The door burst open. Joy ran in, backpack bouncing, then froze at the strangers. Daddy? It's okay, baby. These people just need to ask some questions. But Joy was sharp. She saw the logo on the woman's folder. Her face crumpled. No, you can't take me. Daddy didn't do anything wrong. The video's fake. It's fake. She threw herself at Marcus, sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. He held her, meeting the social worker's eyes over her head. Please, let me calm her down. Ms. Chen nodded, making notes on her tablet. Every sob from Joy was being documented. They asked their questions while Joy clung to Marcus's side. Was she eating regularly? Did she have appropriate supervision? How was she handling her mother's death? My mama's in heaven, Joy said fiercely, and my daddy takes perfect care of me. Ask anyone. Ask Mrs. Etta or Pastor Ruth or... We'll be speaking with references, Mr. Marsh said gently. They photographed the apartment, checked the refrigerator, looked at Joy's room. Found nothing wrong because there was nothing wrong. But Marcus knew that didn't always matter. We'll be in touch, Ms. Chen said at the door. The case will remain open, pending investigation. After they left, Joy wouldn't let go of Marcus's hand. They want to take me away. Nobody's taking you anywhere. You promise? He pulled her close. I promise. But promises felt fragile as glass in a world where truth could be edited. The phone rang at dinner. Marisol's number, but it wasn't Marisol. Mr. Hale, this is Diana Gonzalez, Marisol's attorney. She wanted me to call you. ICE detained her this morning during a random workplace check. Someone reported suspicious activity. The fork fell from Marcus's hand. Where is she? Detention center in Richmond. We're fighting it, but... The lawyer paused. The timing is suspicious. First your video, now this. After he hung up, Marcus sat very still. Joy had gone quiet too, pushing peas around her plate. Marisol? She asked. He nodded. The bad people are winning, aren't they, Daddy? No, baby. They're just loud right now, but loud isn't the same as right. That night, after Joy finally fell asleep on the couch clutching her mother's quilt, Marcus sat in the darkened living room. Outside, one news van still waited. His phone battery died, but he didn't plug it in. The silence felt holy somehow. He thought of Marisol in a detention cell, of Eleanor fighting her board, of Preston's money vanishing like morning mist, of those CPS workers' careful notes. Joy whimpered in her sleep, and he smoothed her hair. Lord, he whispered into the darkness, don't let me fail her. The prayer hung in the air like a promise waiting to be kept. Tomorrow would come with its battles, but tonight his daughter was safe in his arms, wrapped in her mother's quilt, and that had to be enough. It had to be. Dawn came gray through the kitchen window. Marcus packed Joy's lunch with hands that wanted to shake but wouldn't. She sat at the table in her school uniform, backpack ready, trying to look brave. We're going to Mrs. Etta's first, he said, but the bus stops here. I know, baby, just for a few days. Joy nodded, understanding more than any 10-year-old should have to. They walked the 3 blocks in morning quiet, her small hand tight in his. Mrs. Etta opened the door before they knocked, already dressed, coffee brewing. She took one look at Marcus's face and pulled Joy inside. Go on and feed the cats out back, child. They're waiting for you. When Joy disappeared through the kitchen, Mrs. Etta turned to Marcus. How bad? CPS. ICE took Marisol. Preston pulled the money. They're saying I staged it all. Mrs. Etta poured 2 cups of coffee, strong and black. Sit. I need to get to work. Sit. He sat. The kitchen smelled like cinnamon rolls warming in the oven. Pictures of Mrs. Etta's late husband in uniform watched from the walls. "You know what my Harold used to say?" She settled across from him. "Said there's two parts to every fight. First you bend your knees, then you roll up your sleeves. I've been praying." "I know you have, but prayer without action is just worry wearing a Sunday hat." She leaned forward. "You bent your knees. Now what?" Marcus stared into his coffee. "I don't know how to fight people like Preston Vale. They own everything. They own things, not everything. Not truth. Not that little girl sleeping on my couch every other night because her mama's too proud to admit she needs help. Not Joy singing hymns to Ava when she thinks nobody's listening." Mrs. Etta's voice carried the strength of bedrock. "You already rolled up your sleeves once when you broke that window. Time to do it again." At school, the hallways felt different. Teachers who usually waved walked past with careful eyes. Marcus found Principal Nguyen in his office, door cracked. "Dan." The principal looked up, exhaustion written in every line of his face. "Marcus, you shouldn't be here." "I work here." The board strongly suggested. "Since when do suggestions fix buses?" Nguyen closed the door, lowered his voice. "For what it's worth, I believe you. The video's wrong. The angles, the lighting, it's manufactured." "Then say that." "To who? The board that signs my contract? The parents who donate?" Nguyen's shoulders sagged. "I've got 3 years to retirement, Marcus. My wife's medications alone—" "I'm not asking you to fall on your sword." "Aren't you?" They stood in silence. Through the window, kids played on swings, innocent of the battles being fought in their names. "I'll keep saying what I can, where I can," Nguyen said finally. "But my hands are tied." "I know." Marcus turned to leave, then paused. "Your hands might be tied, Dan, but your voice isn't." That afternoon, Eleanor's Mercedes looked out of place on Marcus's street. She sat in her car for a full minute before climbing out, and Marcus watched from the window as she straightened her blazer, building courage. He opened the door before she knocked. "You shouldn't be here?" "Neither should you, according to my board." She looked smaller somehow, outside her office. "May I?" He let her in. She took in the modest living room. Joy's drawings on the refrigerator, the Bible still open on the table, a photo of his late wife on the mantel. "I'm losing." The words fell out of her like stones. "The board called an emergency meeting. They want me to issue a statement distancing Carrington Foods from the incident. They're threatening a no-confidence vote. So issue it." "I can't do that to you." "Why not?" She met his eyes. "Because you saved my daughter. Because you're the first person in years who didn't want something from me. Because—" She stopped, composed herself. "Because it would be wrong." Marcus poured her a glass of water from the tap. She took it carefully, like she'd never drunk from a regular glass. "I won't abandon you," she said, "or Marisol. My lawyers are already working on her case." "Your lawyers work for your company." "No, my personal lawyers, the ones I used for my divorce." A bitter smile. "They're very good at fighting bullies." 200 miles away, Marisol sat on a metal bench in a holding room that smelled like industrial disinfectant. Around her, other women waited, some crying, some silent, all afraid. She closed her eyes and whispered prayers she'd learned as a child. For Ava, who'd wake up wondering where her Marisol was. For Marcus, who'd tried to protect her. For Joy, whose friendship had made Ava bloom. "Alvarez!" A guard stood at the door. "Your lawyer's here." That evening, Marcus and Joy sat at their small dining table, homework spread between them, but neither focused on it. "Daddy, why do people lie about good things?" Marcus set down his pencil. "Because sometimes good things make their bad things look worse." "Like when you helped Ava, it made them look bad for leaving her?" "Something like that." Joy traced patterns on her worksheet. At choir, Mrs. Williams says the truth is like light. You can cover it up for a while, but it always finds cracks to shine through. Mrs. Williams is smart. So what do we do? What do you think we should do? Joy's face set with determination that looked just like her mother's. We do truth out loud. Like I said before, we say what really happened over and over until everyone hears it. Marcus studied his daughter, 10 years old and already warrior fierce with righteousness. That could make things harder for us. Harder than this. He didn't have an answer for that. Okay, he said, feeling something shift inside him like a key turning in a lock. Then that's what we'll do. Joy smiled for the first time in 2 days. Outside, the news van had finally left. The street looked normal again, but Marcus knew better. Tomorrow they'd begin, truth out loud, no matter who tried to silence it. Knees first, he murmured. What, Daddy? Nothing, baby, just remembering something Mrs. Etta said. He reached across the table and squeezed Joy's hand. Tomorrow they'd roll up their sleeves. The morning came gray and uncertain, matching Marcus's mood as he stood at his kitchen window. Joy had already dressed, wearing her Sunday best on a Thursday. Ready, Daddy? He nodded. They had work to do. Marcus started with the houses closest to home. Mrs. Washington answered in her housecoat, baby on her hip. There's something I need you to hear, he said simply. Tonight, school parking lot, where it all started. She shifted the baby's weight. Marcus, folks are talking. Oh, I know what they're saying. That's why I need you there, to hear the truth. Door after door, the same conversation. Some neighbors avoided his eyes. Others, like Mr. Chen from the corner store, gripped his shoulder. We'll be there. Joy and Ava worked the other side of town after choir practice. They'd spent the previous evening making flyers by hand. Joy's neat printing mixed with Ava's crayon hearts. Why hearts? Joy had asked. Because, Ava said seriously, hearts mean love, and love means truth. Now they stood outside the grocery store, pressing papers into shoppers' hands. Some people hurried past. Others stopped, reading the simple message, hear what really happened tonight, 6 p.m., school lot. My mom says your dad's in trouble, a classmate told Joy. My dad saved someone, but that's not trouble. That's brave. By 5:30, Marcus stood in the exact spot where he'd found Ava 2 weeks ago. The asphalt still held the day's heat. He'd borrowed Pastor Ruth's portable speaker and tested it 3 times, making sure the recording would be clear. People arrived slowly at first. Mrs. Etta came early, bringing folding chairs from the church. You're doing right, she said quietly. Principal Nguyen appeared at the edge of the lot, hands in his pockets. He didn't come closer, but he didn't leave either. By 6, nearly 60 people had gathered. Parents with children, teachers off duty, the grocery clerks and bus drivers who kept the town running. Even reporters lingered at the edges, sensing something beyond their usual stories. Marcus stepped forward. No microphone, just his voice carrying across the lot. 2 weeks ago, I stood right here and found a little girl dying in a locked car. Silence fell like a curtain. Since then, you've heard stories. That I staged it, that I wanted attention, that I broke that window for no reason. He pulled out his phone, connected it to the speaker. This is the 911 call I made that day, unedited. His recorded voice filled the air, steady but urgent. There's a child locked in a vehicle at Riverside Elementary. She's unconscious, face is flushed. I'm breaking the window now. The dispatcher's voice, Sir, wait for... No time, she's burning up. The sound of glass shattering. Ava's weak cry. Marcus's voice again, softer now. It's okay, baby. I've got you. You're safe. When the recording ended, several people wiped their eyes. That's the truth, Marcus said. But it's not the whole truth. He nodded to a woman near the back. Sarah Mitchell, the EMT who'd treated Ava, stepped forward. That little girl's core temperature was 103.8 when we got to her, Sarah said, her medical training lending weight to every word. 5 more minutes, maybe 10, and we'd have been looking at organ failure. Marcus Hale saved that child's life. Full stop. One by one, others spoke. Mrs. Rodriguez from the cafeteria. I've seen kids sleeping in cars during my lunch shift, parents working doubles, no choice but to leave them while they grab that second job. James from maintenance. Last month I found a boy locked in a truck while his mom cleaned offices. She was crying when she came back, said childcare cost more than she made in a day. A young mother named Angela. I've done it, left my baby sleeping while I ran in for a pickup shift. Not because I'm bad, because I'm desperate. The stories layered like testimony, each one adding weight to a truth the town had been avoiding. The sun dropped lower, painting the lot orange and gold. That's when Eleanor's Mercedes pulled up. The crowd parted. She'd clearly come straight from a board meeting, suit wrinkled, makeup smudged. But she walked through them all, shoulders straight, heading directly for Marcus. Mrs. Carrington, someone whispered, thought the company suspended him. Eleanor took the wireless microphone someone offered. Her hands shook, but her voice didn't. My name is Eleanor Carrington. 2 weeks ago, this man saved my daughter's life while I was in a board meeting discussing fourth quarter projections. She paused, swallowing hard. Since then, my company has tried to spin this story to protect our image. We've let a good man's name be dragged through mud rather than admit our policies push working parents past their breaking points. She reached into her jacket, pulled out the laminated badge they'd taken from Marcus. Mr. Hale, I'm reinstating you as Director of Community Care, effective immediately. Your first task is to implement the Safe Lot protocol we designed. Your second is to help me rebuild this company's soul. She held out the badge. Marcus looked at it, then at the crowd, then at Joy bouncing on her toes beside Mrs. Etta. He took it. The cheers started small, then grew. Joy broke free from Mrs. Etta and ran full speed into Marcus's arms. He lifted her up, and she whispered in his ear, "Truth out loud, Daddy. We did it." But Marcus knew better. They'd won this battle, maybe. The war for dignity, for compassion over appearances, that would take longer. Still, holding his daughter as the crowd pressed close with congratulations, watching Eleanor field angry phone calls from board members while refusing to budge, seeing Ava slip her hand into Eleanor's free one, Marcus felt something he hadn't felt in weeks. Hope, real and solid as the badge in his pocket. Sunday morning brought half the town to Riverside Community Church. People who hadn't darkened the door in years squeezed into pews, stood along the walls, filled the vestibule. Word of yesterday's parking lot assembly had spread like wildfire. Marcus slipped in late with Joy, finding space against the back wall. He preferred it there, could see everything, slip out if needed. Joy tugged his hand, pointing to where Ava sat with Eleanor near the middle. The girl waved, clutching her stuffed lamb. Up front, Preston Vale occupied his usual spot in the first pew, but nothing else about him seemed usual. His shoulders hunched forward, his hands gripped the hymnal like a lifeline. Beside him, not behind, not across the aisle, but right beside him, sat the boy from the donor meeting. The child's mother, Teresa, perched on the boy's other side, her maid's uniform replaced with a simple blue dress. The choir filed in, Mrs. Etta leading them in her signature burgundy robe. At 72, her voice still carried power that made younger singers step back. She caught Marcus's eye, nodded once, then raised her hands. Amazing grace filled the sanctuary. Not the gentle version from Community Day, but something fiercer, more urgent, like grace itself was fighting to break through. Pastor Ruth took the pulpit, her white hair catching morning light through stained glass. She gripped the edges, leaning forward. Church, we need to talk about truth. No gentle build-up, no warming the crowd. Truth isn't comfortable. It doesn't wait for convenient timing. Sometimes it comes from the mouth of a child in a boardroom, shattering our carefully built facades. Preston's knuckles went white. And mercy, Pastor Ruth continued, her eyes moving across the congregation, lingering on certain faces. Mercy isn't earned, can't be. If we could earn it, wouldn't be mercy, would it? Mercy is what happens when truth breaks us open and grace pours in. She looked directly at Preston. The whole church felt it, that laser focus of pastoral authority mixed with grandmother's love. Some of us have been living lies so long we've forgotten what truth tastes like. Some of us have let fear of losing face cost us our actual faces, the ones God gave us, the ones our children need to see. The boy, Miguel, Marcus had learned his name was Miguel, leaned against his mother. His small hand crept across the pew, reaching for Preston. The whole church held its breath. Preston's hand met his halfway. "Truth and mercy," Pastor Ruth said, voice softer now. "They're dance partners. Can't have one without the other. Truth without mercy is cruelty. Mercy without truth is enabling. But together—" She spread her arms wide. "Together they remake the world." The sermon ended, but Pastor Ruth didn't move from the pulpit. She waited, watching, as if she knew something was coming. Preston stood. The rustle of 300 people trying not to gasp filled the sanctuary. He walked to the front, each step measured, until he faced the congregation. His usual polish was gone, tie crooked, face raw. "I need to say something." Pastor Ruth stepped aside, giving him the pulpit. Preston gripped it like Marcus had seen soldiers grip their weapons, not for attack, but for anchor. "6 years ago, Teresa worked in my home. She was kind, decent, invisible to me in the way I'd been taught servants should be." His voice cracked. I took advantage of that invisibility. When she told me she was pregnant, I gave her money and made her sign papers. Told myself I was being generous." Miguel stood up in the pew, small and brave. Teresa tried to pull him back down, but he shook his head. "When my son—" Preston's voice broke completely. He started again. "When Miguel spoke truth in that donor meeting, he did what I should have done years ago. He claimed his father, out loud, in front of everyone." Tears ran down Preston's face now, no attempt to hide them. "I've been a coward, a hypocrite, sitting in this front pew every Sunday, writing checks to feel righteous while denying my own child." He looked at Miguel. "Son, I'm sorry. You deserve better. You deserve better." Miguel broke free from his mother and ran down the aisle. Preston dropped to his knees, catching the boy against his chest. The church seemed to inhale as one. "I'm resigning from the school board," Preston said, still holding Miguel. "Effective immediately. The power I've wielded there was built on lies, and it needs to go to someone who understands truth." He stood, keeping one hand on Miguel's shoulder, and pulled out his checkbook. 2 weeks ago, I promised a donation to the Child Care Initiative and then withdrew it when scandal threatened. Another cowardly act." He walked to the altar rail, wrote the check there where everyone could see. $50,000, not anonymous, from Preston Vale, father of Miguel Reyes. He signed it, handed it to Pastor Ruth. "And a trust fund for my son's education should have been done years ago." The silence stretched like a held note. Then Mrs. Etta started clapping, slow, deliberate. Others joined. Not the polite applause of church functions, but something deeper, recognition that they'd witnessed redemption in real time. Marcus felt tears on his face. Joy squeezed his hand. "Daddy, look," she whispered. Teresa had stood, was walking toward Preston and Miguel. She reached them, placed one hand on each. A family portrait years in the making. The organ swelled. Mrs. Etta must have signaled the organist. Amazing Grace again, but this time the whole congregation sang. Even Preston, voice rough and broken. Even Miguel, high and sweet. Even Marcus, who rarely sang anymore but couldn't help himself. Grace had broken through. Truth had won its dance with mercy. The email arrived Monday morning while Eleanor reviewed quarterly reports. Her assistant knocked, face flushed with excitement. "You need to see this, now." The message came from Darren, the college kid who ran tech for their events. His usual casual tone was gone, replaced with careful precision. "Ms. Carrington, I found something." The deepfake video of Mr. Hale was commissioned through a third-party PR firm called Apex Solutions. Payment traced to a corporate card. The cardholder is Robert Hutchinson. Eleanor's coffee cup froze halfway to her lips. Robert Hutchinson! Board member, the one who'd been circling her position like a vulture since the divorce. Her phone rang. Marcus. Principal Nguyen just called. CPS is dropping the investigation. What? Teachers testified Friday afternoon, 12 of them. Said Joy's one of the most well-adjusted kids in school. Inspector apologized, said it was clearly a false report meant to harass. Eleanor sank into her chair. The pieces clicked together like tumblers in a lock. Marcus, can you meet me at corporate headquarters at 2? Bring Joy if you need to. I'm calling a press conference. Press conference for what? She looked at the email again. Justice. The conference room filled with reporters by 1:45. Eleanor had chosen the biggest space, the one usually reserved for quarterly earnings. Marcus stood beside her at the podium, uncomfortable in his only suit but steady as granite. Joy sat in the front row between Mrs. Etta and Ava, both girls coloring quietly. Thank you for coming, Eleanor's CEO voice rang clear. 2 weeks ago, this community witnessed an act of heroism when Marcus Hale saved my daughter's life. Since then, Mr. Hale has been subjected to a campaign of lies designed to destroy his reputation and threaten his family. She clicked the remote. The screen behind them lit up with transaction records. This morning, we discovered that the doctored video was created by Apex Solutions, a PR firm specializing in what they call narrative management. The work was commissioned and paid for by Robert Hutchinson, member of our board of directors. Gasps rippled through the room. Cameras clicked like crickets. Mr. Hutchinson has been attempting to force me out as CEO for the past year. When Mr. Hale's rescue brought positive attention to our community initiatives Mr. Hutchinson opposed, he chose character assassination over honest disagreement. She clicked again. Phone records appeared. The anonymous tip to Child Protective Services came from a burner phone purchased with the same corporate card. Marcus stepped to the microphone. His hands gripped the podium, but his voice came out strong. 3 weeks ago, I pulled a little girl from a hot car. Any parent would have done the same, any decent person. He looked at the cameras. Since then, my daughter has watched strangers question whether I'm fit to raise her. She's heard whispers at school. She's seen me investigated for doing what was right. Joy looked up from her coloring, fierce pride on her face. But she's also seen this community rally. Teachers who testified on my behalf, neighbors who brought casseroles when times got hard, a CEO who chose truth over corporate convenience. He nodded at Eleanor. That's the story that matters, not the lies one bitter man tried to spread. Eleanor took back the microphone. Robert Hutchinson's resignation has been accepted, effective immediately. He will face potential criminal charges for filing false reports. The board has voted unanimously to support our Safe Lot program and Working Parents Fund. A reporter's hand shot up. What about the nanny, Marisol Alvarez? Sources say she's been detained by ICE. Eleanor's jaw tightened. Ms. Alvarez's attorney will be addressing that. A young woman stepped forward, Lucia Martinez, known for taking impossible cases. My client was detained based on an anonymous tip that claimed she had abandoned a child in her care. This was demonstrably false. She was in the school at a parent-teacher conference when the incident occurred, with signed documentation. She held up papers. The call came from the same burner phone that contacted CPS about Mr. Hale. We're filing for immediate release and pursuing a U visa for Ms. Alvarez as a victim of criminal fraud. The room exploded with questions. Eleanor raised her hand for silence. Carrington Foods will cover all legal expenses for both Mr. Hale and Ms. Alvarez. We failed to protect our people when it mattered. That changes now. That evening, Marcus's duplex smelled like spaghetti sauce and garlic bread. Joy stood on a step stool, carefully stirring the pot while singing scales. Fa, 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 fa. Easy on the high notice. Marcus laughed, setting the table. "Save your voice for Sunday." "Mrs. Coleman says I get to sing the second verse all by myself." "That's a big deal, baby girl." She beamed, then grew serious. "Daddy, is Ms. Marisol coming back?" Marcus considered lying, making it simple. But Joy deserved truth. "Her lawyer thinks so. Might take a few days, but yeah, she'll be back." "Good. Ava misses her. And Ms. Eleanor seems sad when Ava's sad." Marcus smiled at his daughter's emotional mathematics. She noticed everything, processed it all with that 10-year-old wisdom that cut straight through adult complications. They ate dinner talking about normal things, math homework, the tree fort Anthony was building, whether chocolate milk came from chocolate cows. Joy demonstrated her choir solo between bites, voice clear and true. Marcus watched her, this bright soul who'd weathered such storms, and felt peace settle in his chest. His phone buzzed, text from Eleanor. Marisol released. "Home by tomorrow. Board approved full funding. Thank you for standing tall." He showed it to Joy. She squealed, noodles falling from her fork. "We won, Daddy. Truth won." "Yeah, baby, it did." Later, after dishes and homework and prayers, Marcus sat on the porch. The September evening had cooled, crickets singing their ancient song. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, implementing the program, healing the wounds Hutchinson had caused, figuring out what exactly was growing between him and Eleanor. But tonight, his daughter sang in the shower. Tonight, justice had shown its face. Tonight, peace lived in their little duplex, and that was enough. That was everything. 2 weeks later, Marcus checked his rearview mirror. Eleanor sat in the back seat, hands folded tight in her lap, watching the courthouse grow larger through the windshield. "She's really coming out today?" Eleanor asked for the third time. "That's what Lucia said. Paperwork cleared this morning." Eleanor nodded, smoothing invisible wrinkles from her skirt. She'd dressed down, simple blouse, minimal jewelry, but still looked like money next to Marcus's work boots and clean jeans. "Ava doesn't know yet. I didn't want to promise in case—" She trailed off. Marcus understood, hope disappointed too often to trust it completely. They parked and walked toward the courthouse steps. September had mellowed into October, leaves just starting to turn. A small crowd had gathered, reporters, but also families from the school, workers from Carrington Foods. Word had spread. The courthouse doors opened. Marisol stepped out, blinking in the afternoon sun. She wore the same dress from the day they'd taken her, now wrinkled from weeks of waiting. Lucia Martinez walked beside her, professional triumph barely contained on her face. Then Ava burst from the crowd. "Mari! Mari!" The 6-year-old flew up the steps, crashing into Marisol's legs with force that nearly toppled them both. Marisol dropped to her knees, gathering Ava close, whispering Spanish endearments into her hair. Around them, people started clapping, first one person, then another, until applause rolled across the courthouse plaza. Eleanor climbed the steps slowly, like she was approaching something holy. When she reached them, she knelt too. Making a circle of 3, Marcus heard her say, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I let this happen." Marisol looked up, tears streaming. "No, Senora. No apologies. We are here now." Eleanor stood, helping Marisol to her feet, then turned to face the crowd and cameras. Her CEO voice returned, clear and commanding. "Carrington Foods failed Ms. Alvarez. We failed all our workers who live in fear while caring for our families." She put her arm around Marisol's shoulders. "Today we correct that failure. Ms. Alvarez will be joining our company as Family Care Coordinator for our new initiative. We will sponsor her legal residency and ensure no family under our employment faces deportation fears alone." More applause. Reporters shouted questions. But Eleanor was already guiding Marisol and Ava toward Marcus's truck, shield formation against the chaos. "Mrs. Etta's?" Marcus asked as they buckled in. "Mrs. Etta's," Eleanor confirmed. The Coleman house smelled like heaven crossed with Sunday dinner. Fried chicken cooled on the counter, green beans simmered with ham hock, and cornbread muffins, Ava's favorite, filled 2 baskets. Mrs. Etta directed traffic in her kitchen like a general, pointing with a wooden spoon. "Joy, honey, get the sweet tea from the porch fridge. Marcus, those folding chairs need to come in from the garage. Eleanor, yes, you too. Grab plates from the cabinet." Nobody argued with Mrs. Etta in her own kitchen. Soon the dining room overflowed. Principal Nguyen had come with his wife. Pastor Ruth brought potato salad. 3 teachers from the elementary school carried casseroles. Even Preston Vale stood awkwardly in the corner, his newly acknowledged son playing cards with Joy and Ava on the floor. Marisol sat at the center of it all, still looking stunned. People kept touching her shoulder, welcoming her home, saying they'd prayed for her. She responded softly, gratefully, occasionally wiping her eyes. "All right now," Mrs. Etta called out. "Before we eat, we give thanks." The room quieted. Hands joined across the table, around the room, making a chain of connection. Pastor Ruth said, "Grace," thanking God for justice, for mercy, for community that stands together. When she finished, Joy's voice rose sweet and clear. "Amazing grace, how sweet the sound." Others joined, harmonies building. Marisol sang in Spanish, same melody, different words. Even Preston's son knew the tune, humming along. The hymn filled the small house, spilled out the windows into the October evening. Marcus watched it all, this unlikely family formed from crisis. Eleanor sang beside him, voice uncertain but trying. Their fingers had somehow intertwined during the prayer, neither pulled away. When the song ended, Mrs. Etta clapped once. "Now eat, food's getting cold." The party continued as darkness fell. Kids played in the backyard while adults talked on the porch. Marcus found himself beside Preston, who was nursing a sweet tea like it might bite him. "Never thought I'd be here," Preston said quietly. "At Mrs. Etta's?" At any of this, the truth-telling, the acknowledgement. He watched his son chase fireflies with joy. Spent so many years protecting an image that wasn't even real. Marcus knew that weight. After his wife died, he'd worn grief-like armor, keeping everyone distant to avoid more loss. "Image is easier than truth," Marcus said, "until it isn't." Preston nodded. "That program you're building, the cooling stations, the child care support, I want to help. Really help, not just write checks. We need volunteers for the Saturday installations. I'll be there." They stood in comfortable silence, watching their children play. Inside, Eleanor helped Mrs. Etta wrap leftovers. Marisol rocked a sleeping Ava in the living room armchair. Teachers swapped stories at the dining table. This was community, messy, complicated, real. Later, Marcus carried a drowsy Joy to his truck. Eleanor walked them out, Ava sleeping against her shoulder. "Thank you," Eleanor said, "for all of it. The rescue, the truth-telling, not giving up when they came after you. We all did it together." She smiled, shifting Ava's weight. "My mother used to say that courage is contagious. You started an outbreak." Before Marcus could respond, Joy stirred in his arms. "Daddy," she mumbled. Truth out loud worked. "Yeah, baby girl, it did." Joy smiled sleepily. "Told you so." Eleanor laughed, soft and genuine. "She's got wisdom beyond her years. Gets it from her mama." They stood there, October wind rustling the trees, holding their daughters, connected by something deeper than crisis now. Tomorrow would bring challenges, implementing programs, healing wounds, building something new from the wreckage of what was. But tonight, they'd celebrated. Tonight, families were whole. Tonight, truth had won its battle, and they could rest in that victory. Marcus tucked Joy into her bed with the quilt, its patches worn soft from love and use. She murmured something about fireflies and hymns, already drifting toward dreams. He sat on the bed's edge, watching her breathe, heart lighter than it had been in years. Through the window, October stars appeared one by one, and Marcus whispered his own prayer of gratitude into the darkness. 6 months later, April sunshine warmed the crowd gathered outside the brand-new Hale Carrington Center. The building stood beside the elementary school, its cheerful yellow walls and wide windows promising shelter and safety. Colorful balloons bobbed in the spring breeze, purple and gold, the school colors Joy had insisted on. Marcus adjusted his tie for the third time. He still wasn't comfortable in formal clothes, but Eleanor had convinced him this day called for it. "Stop fidgeting," Mrs. Etta commanded from her folding chair in the front row. "You look fine." The parking lot, that same lot where everything began, now held rows of white chairs. Teachers, parents, cafeteria workers, bus drivers all sat together. Preston Vale was there with his son, both wearing matching baseball caps. Marisol stood near the podium, official badge reading Family Care Coordinator pinned to her dress. Principal Nguyen tapped the microphone. "Welcome, everyone, to the grand opening of the Hale Carrington Center." Applause erupted. Joy and Ava, wearing matching yellow sundresses Mrs. Etta had sewn, bounced on their toes near the ribbon. Eleanor stepped to the microphone, poised but warm. Gone was the rigid CEO from September. This Eleanor smiled easily, made eye contact with the crowd. 8 months ago, a crisis in this parking lot forced us to see hard truths. Working parents were drowning. Caregivers carried impossible loads. Children paid the price. She paused, finding Marcus in the crowd. But one man's compassion sparked something bigger. He reminded all of us, that leadership isn't about protecting image or profit. It's about protecting people. She motioned Marcus forward. His legs felt heavy, but Joy's grin pulled him to the podium. "I'm honored to introduce the Director of Community Care for the Hale Carrington Center, Marcus Hale." The crowd stood applauding. Someone whistled, probably one of his fellow mechanics from the bus depot. Marcus waited for quiet, throat tight. "Thank you, but this wasn't one person's doing. This center exists because a community chose compassion over convenience, because neighbors decided that every parent deserves support, every child deserves safety, and every worker deserves dignity." He gestured toward the building. "Inside, we have cooling shelters for hot days, emergency child care for parents in crisis, support groups for caregivers, none of it fancy, all of it necessary." "Now," Eleanor said, returning to the microphone, "let's cut this ribbon." Joy and Ava stepped forward with child-sized scissors. Purple ribbon stretched between them. The crowd counted. 3, 2, 1. The girls cut together, ribbon falling away. Doors opened, and people streamed inside to explore. The center's main room buzzed with excitement. Parents examined the emergency childcare sign-up sheets. Children discovered the reading corner with its mountain of donated books. The cooling shelter area had misting fans and water stations, benches where tired workers could rest. Marcus watched it all, still amazed. 8 months ago, he'd been just a bus mechanic trying to raise his daughter alone. Now, this. "Mr. Marcus," a small voice called. The boy, Preston's son Samuel, ran up clutching a drawing. "I made this for you." The crayon picture showed stick figures holding hands around a yellow building. Marcus knelt to Samuel's level. "That's beautiful, buddy. Should we hang it in my office?" Samuel beamed. Preston appeared, resting a hand on his son's shoulder. Their relationship was still new, still careful, but growing. Near the entrance, the school choir assembled. Pastor Ruth raised her hands, and young voices rose in harmony. They sang "This Little Light of Mine," Joy's solo voice leading the verses. Parents pulled out phones, recording. Mrs. Etta dabbed her eyes with a handkerchief. Eleanor found Marcus by the memorial wall, where photos from the past months told their story. The rescue, the parking lot assembly, the community meetings in Mrs. Etta's kitchen. "We should add one more thing," she said. Joy and Ava appeared, carrying something covered in cloth. Other children gathered, curious. The girls unveiled a shadow box, and the crowd pressed closer to see. Inside, carefully mounted, was Joy's quilt. the one Marcus had wrapped around Ava that terrible September day. The patches were worn, some stains remained, but it had been pressed and preserved. Below it, a brass plaque read, "What Compassion Looks Like." The room went silent. Then someone started clapping, slow at first, then faster, spreading through the crowd. Marcus felt tears threaten. That quilt had been his wife's last project, stitched during chemo treatments. Now it would remind everyone who entered this center that small acts of kindness could change everything. "Daddy, you're crying?" Joy announced, loud enough for everyone to hear. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Marcus scooped up both girls, one in each arm, not caring who saw his wet eyes. "Happy tears, baby girl, happy tears." As afternoon faded, families reluctantly headed home. Marcus helped fold chairs while Joy and Ava played hopscotch on the freshly painted playground. Eleanor worked beside him, efficient and easy in her movements. "You know," she said, "the board wants to expand. Centers in 3 more counties by next year." "That's ambitious." "That's necessary." She paused, studying him. "I'll need a partner, someone who understands both the mission and the people." Their eyes met. These 6 months they'd grown from crisis partners to something more. Quiet dinners discussing programs had become family dinners. Strategy meetings had become porch conversations under stars. "Partners," Marcus repeated, testing the word. Eleanor smiled, reaching for his hand. "Partners." Joy and Ava ran over, breathless from playing. "Can we get ice cream?" Ava asked. "All 4 of us?" Joy added, grinning, like she'd planned this. Marcus and Eleanor exchanged glances, amused, warm, accepting. This was their life now. Complicated, beautiful, built on truth and grace. "All 4 of us," Marcus confirmed. They walked toward the parking lot, girls skipping ahead. Behind them, the Hale Carrington Center stood ready for Monday, for working families who needed shelter, support, and hope. The shadow box caught evening light through the window, quilt patches glowing soft as stained glass, telling their story to anyone who looked. Sometimes compassion begins with breaking glass. Sometimes it grows in parking lots. Always it looks like people choosing each other over fear. The duplex kitchen had never held so many people. Marcus pulled mismatched chairs from every room while Joy set the table with their everyday plates. Nothing fancy, but clean and welcoming. The aroma of Mrs. Etta's famous pot roast filled the small space, mixing with the scent of fresh cornbread Marisol had baked that afternoon. "Joy, honey, grab the extra napkins from the drawer," Marcus called, maneuvering around Eleanor, who was tossing salad at the counter. The CEO of Carrington Foods, making salad in his kitchen. 6 months ago the thought would have been absurd. Now it felt right. "I found them," Joy announced, then whispered something to Ava that made both girls dissolve into giggles. Mrs. Etta commanded the stove like a general, wooden spoon in hand. "Marisol, check those green beans. Marcus, stop hovering and sit down. You've been on your feet all day." "Yes, ma'am." Marcus grinned, knowing better than to argue. They squeezed around the small table, shoulders touching, passing dishes hand to hand. The good china stayed in the cabinet. This was family style, real and unpretentious. Ava sat between Joy and Marisol, chattering about the ribbon cutting, her words tumbling over each other in excitement. "And then we cut it together and everyone clapped, and did you see the shadow box? Our quilt looked so pretty." "Your quilt," Joy corrected gently. "You needed it more that day." The adults exchanged glances over the girls' heads. That September afternoon felt both yesterday and a lifetime ago. Eleanor's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then smiled. Preston sent another message. Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Another donation?" "Better," she read aloud. "Thank you for today. Samuel hasn't stopped talking about the center. I've joined a father's support group at Pastor Ruth's church, hoping to help other men who've hidden from their responsibilities. It's time I stopped running from truth." "Well, I'll be," Mrs. Etta said, shaking her head. "Never thought I'd see Preston Vale humble himself, Graceworks Mysteries. He sent flowers, too, Eleanor added, gesturing to the wildflower bouquet on the counter, for everyone who believed second chances were possible. Marisol reached across the table, squeezing Eleanor's hand. You gave me a second chance. When ice came, I thought everything was over. You never needed a second chance, Marcus said firmly. You needed people to see you were already doing right. The conversation drifted to easier topics, plans for the center's first full week, which volunteers had signed up for shifts, how many families had already registered for emergency childcare. Joy and Ava compared their favorite parts of the day, debating whether the choir performance or the ribbon cutting was better. After dinner, while Mrs. Etta and Marisol cleaned up, refusing all offers of help, Marcus and Eleanor stepped onto the small front porch. The evening air was warm, crickets beginning their nightly chorus. They stood side by side, coffee mugs warming their hands, watching Joy and Ava dart across the lawn with mason jars. "Firefly," Ava squealed, cupping her hands around a blinking light. "Gentle, gentle," Joy coached, showing her how to transfer it to the jar. "We'll let them go soon." Eleanor sighed, a sound of contentment mixed with something else. "You know what I envy about you?" Marcus turned, surprised. "You envy something about me?" "Your peace." She gestured at the modest yard, the girls playing, the warm light spilling from his living room window. Even during the worst of it, the investigation, the threats, you had this calm center. How? Marcus considered, watching Joy help Ava poke holes in a jar lid. Peace isn't the absence of storms. No. It's knowing you'll walk through them with others. He nodded toward the house, where Mrs. Etta's laughter carried through the screen door. Nobody faces trouble alone here. That's what faith looks like with its work clothes on. Eleanor was quiet for a moment. I spent so many years thinking strength meant standing alone, building walls between personal and professional, keeping everyone at safe distances. And now? She smiled, bumping his shoulder gently. Now I have a business partner who makes me cut ribbons with kindergarten scissors, and 2 girls who think sleepovers should involve quilt forts and hymn sing-alongs. Speaking of which, Marcus gestured toward the yard. Joy and Ava had abandoned firefly catching and were spreading the famous quilt on the grass, lying on their backs to watch the first stars appear. Later, after Mrs. Etta had gone home and Marisol had headed to her apartment, the 4 of them gathered in Marcus's living room. The girls had claimed the quilt, wrapping themselves together on the couch while Eleanor helped Marcus put away the extra chairs. "Tell us the story again," Ava requested, her eyes already heavy with sleep. "Which story, baby?" Eleanor asked, settling beside her daughter. "About the quilt. About the day Mr. Marcus saved me." Marcus sat in his worn recliner, Joy climbing into his lap despite being almost too big for it. "You sure? You've heard it so many times." "Please, Daddy," Joy added, "but tell it right, with all the parts." So Marcus told it. How he'd noticed the car, felt something pull him toward it, how Ava had looked so small, how the quilt had been Joy's insistence that morning, how the prayer in the parking lot had changed everything. "And now the quilt lives at the center," Ava murmured, already drifting toward sleep. "So everyone knows what love looks like." "What compassion looks like," Joy corrected gently, but Ava was already asleep. Eleanor carried Ava to Joy's room, where a small bed had become Ava's on the nights they stayed over, increasingly often these days. Marcus tucked both girls in, the quilt spread over them like a blessing. Back in the living room, Eleanor gathered her purse. "I should go." "Or," Marcus said carefully, "you could stay for one more cup of coffee. It's been a big day." She smiled, setting her purse back down. One more cup. They sat on the porch again, closer this time, watching fireflies blink their ancient rhythm. The silence between them was comfortable, full of possibility. Marcus closed his eyes, breathing in the summer evening, and whispered a prayer of gratitude for second chances that came when you broke windows instead of staying silent, for truth spoken out loud even when voices shook. For Preston's courage and Marisol's return. For Mrs. Etta's wisdom and Pastor Ruth's steady faith. Mostly for this, a future being stitched together one day at a time, patch by patch, like a quilt made by loving hands. Not perfect, some seams showed, some stains remained, but beautiful in its imperfection, strong enough to wrap around anyone who needed shelter. "Amen," Eleanor whispered beside him, though he hadn't realized he'd prayed aloud. "Amen," he agreed, and reached for her hand. If you enjoyed the story, I handpicked this next story that you will enjoy. Please don't miss this one. Click here to watch it.